So you were telling me about the first year at Feldefing. So in the first year you didn't go to any
No, no, we
weddings.
started, no weddings, no, no.
The first
I
year.
didn't know anybody, but really, usually they didn't know each other. They went anyhow. Whoever was a wedding, they went because they
So
wanted to dance.
so everybody went
Yeah,
who wanted to go.
yeah,
Now,
but I didn't.
okay, but when someone did get married, if people wanted to go, they crashed the
They
wedding.
crashed the wedding, they were dancing, then they left when the food was served.
Okay. In this camp, did you have food in your room or did you eat, how'd you get your food? Did you eat
Where
in Feldefing?
In Feldafing?
Do you remember?
I was most of it in my cousin's house, so we ate there.
You ate mostly in
Yeah.
his house.
Yeah.
But do you remember,
But there was a committee.
was there a kitchen?
There was a kitchen, but they didn't cook for people. No.
Was
They
there rations?
They cooked at the beginning, when they first liberated. They had an open kitchen for everybody, and then the kitchen was. They didn't want anymore. They wanted for themselves. Everybody wanted. So there was a warehouse with like a grocery, and they gave out all kinds of food.
So you could get what you wanted.
That was already the Americans, and the boys were working in that place. Boys were working, giving out food for everybody, for the week or for the day. And I brought it up this to my cousin, and whatever she cooked, whatever we ate there. So I really don't know. We didn't eat anything that we made ourselves, no.
Some people worked in the camp.
Yes, they did. Some people opened up business already in camp.
Do you remember the kinds of businesses people? Was there a tailor in the camp?
Yeah, there was a tailor, there was a shoemaker. I remember the shoes that he made me. I came to America with them, with the cork platform.
You remember
And there were already groceries to buy and barber shops and all kind of knickknacks to buy, and people opened up all kinds of in the street.
These are survivors.
Yeah, all
and
the
there
survivors.
was there a survivor who was a dentist?
No, if somebody had trouble with the teeth, we had to go already to a German dentist, but he did it free. He had to do it free, not to charge.
What about doctors?
Doctors was already one doctor that was, he happens to be from our town in Sosnovitz, and he was just finishing his internship where the war broke out, and he didn't really finish it, So the hospital, it was called that it's taken over by this doctor. He's the head of the doctors in the hospital. But he had a German, which was a high doctor, that he worked at in that hospital. He remained, but he was not allowed to be the headmaster.
Was he a survivor?
No.
Okay.
The German doctor, no.
No, the other one.
Oh, the other one, yeah,
Okay.
a survivor. And he learned by him an awful lot,
Okay.
But he couldn't be, the German couldn't be the head doctor in the hospital. He had to be under a Jewish surviving doctor.
Do you remember the name of the hospital?
No, not the name of the hospital, but the doctor, not the German doctor, I don't remember his name, but the Jewish doctor is
What was it?
Leitner, yeah. I happened to meet him here. He lived upstate. He had a practice upstate New York.
Did he also live in Boca Raton?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Later he did, and they lived in Florida.
You
And
know, he's,
and he married a survivor, a girl, you know. And I don't know. I know he died. He died already.
I know, do you know that he tried to save my father's life?
Really.
Yes.
He happened to be, after that, he happened to be very good. He learned a lot by that German doctor.
Yeah, I will, his name was Leitner and he lived later in Boca
In Boca
Raton.
Raton.
Oh, it's
First he lived
amazing.
here. He had the practice upstairs in Woodridge.
I'll tell you a story later.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you remember whether or not, was Ort trying to train people to,
Ort, sure.
was
Sure.
Ort at Feldefing?
Yes, Ort was there. He tried to, there was a school that Ort headed, whoever wanted a profession.
They were trying to do it. Did you
yes.
ever take any courses?
No. My cousin said, no, don't start. Maybe you will go back to school and all that, you know. Let's look whether we could still find somebody from your family, close family, for sisters, or your little brother should have been survived, or the sister should survive, you know. They were still young. My parents were also not old.
Okay.
They were in their early 50s.
Were, uh, were there schools, kindergartens, anything that you remember?
No.
Any educational stuff going on that you remember?
That I don't remember. No.
Was there a shul or
Yes.
a rabbi or services?
Yeah, sure. There was already a rabbi and a rebbitzin because people were getting married, you know, and there was already a moil. Children were getting born in the 46.
What was it like when a child was born?
I gave birth to my child in 47.
But the question is, after all the death and after all the loss,
This was miracles. That we could still have children, that we could still have a life, and which we made for ourselves. We've seen that, you know, that we can get anybody. I wrote letters to Sosnovitz, and I gave my name and address and everything, and I did not get no response back, which means that nobody was survived. Then I met somebody in Feldafing, which they told me, and I knew her from school, and she says she was in Sosnovitz till 1943, when the main Ausweisung was sent out, everybody already from the ghetto, before they started sending out slowly, you know. So she said, your house where you lived, nobody survived, because they took them, the whole house in one time, and shipped them to Auschwitz, straight to the gas chambers. So I knew already that she knew, because she was still there,
Right.
that I have nobody. So we started looking whether we could hook up with somebody to have a life. And I was going to dances, but I didn't meet anybody that I would want. There was a lot of, in Feldafing was a lot of from Grizia, from
Greek.
Greek, yeah, survivors, you know, Jewish boys and Jewish girls, but and they were gorgeous, just gorgeous, that you could fall to their feet, you know, but they were rotten as big as they were, so rotten that they don't come any bigger. you know, and everybody knew. So a Polish girl always stayed away from them. Oh no, you are Greek, forget about it. You knew right away that he's, because the color of his skin was different, and the speech they were talking with a very heavy accent,
Why were they so?
German.
Why were they so rotten?
They were mean. They were the girls that hooked up with them. They were hitting them. They weren't nice. That's all. So if you were a nice girl, you stayed away, far away from it. And I had them in the building that my cousin lived with his wife in the villa,
Yeah.
and they had one kitchen for 2 floors, one kitchen downstairs. And I said to my cousin once, she sent me back, she had something on the oven there. I says, I'm not going there. There is always Greeks there. And they try to connect you, you know. I says, no, you're not sending me to the kitchen. I had already experience with them. I says, no, I'm not going. Each time I come, there are 2 Greeks there. And they lived there also upstairs, I
Right.
don't know. Well, anyhow, one time it was a sign in the committee. We always used to go down to the committee where they have their office, just in case somebody writes letters, just in case there's some answers, you know. So there was a sign that there's gonna be a big ball in the mayor of Garmisch-Partenkirche, of Garmisch in Germany,
Yeah.
is giving a big party for the survivors, surrounding survivors, and whoever everybody is welcome.
Okay.
So I asked my friend if she wants to go. She says, no, what am I going to schlep myself with a truck? They provided transportation, but it's a truck, it's bumpy, it's all this. And at that time, one truck with boys went to a show, I think a week before. A truck went to a baseball game, a football game, you know, the soccer.
Okay. Yeah.
And somehow the truck overturned going to that town, and they all got killed.
Oh my God.
All the boys.
These are all survivors.
all survived.
Oh my God.
The truck overturned and fell to a ditch, and they all died. So she was skeptical. She says, I don't feel like going. And then the truck was standing there, and the last minute they yelled out, the one that was organizing this trip,
Yeah.
yelled out, we have one more seat, whoever wants to get on it. And one of the boys pulled me up on the truck, and I went. Well, oh my God, but I don't know anybody here. If I would be with my friend, it's already better. And I sat down, and we started, the truck started going to Garmisch-Partenkirchen. It was like 3 hours drive. And it got like a little bit dark already. And I'm sitting, you know, and they were singing, and I was singing with them, or whatever they was doing, you know, they were singing on the truck, and they were so happy, everybody. And all of a sudden, I feel like a hand is creeping on my knee. I says, oh, you give out, I'm in trouble. I don't know, the boy next door was sitting to me, with me. And he's pushing his hand down. I said, get off, what is that? Then I said, I still have to sit here 2 hours? Oh yeah, bro, I'm in trouble. So somehow I said, let me ask, maybe is somebody here from my town? And I said, is there anybody here from Sosnovitz? So I hear one guy is saying, I am from Sosnovitz. And I asked him, where did you live? He says, on Modzejowska. And he asked me, where did you live? I said, I lived on Targova. Oh, that's so close. Would you like to come sit with me? I says, yes. Oy vey, I'm gedillig gekommen. I sat near him and he was so nice, all this, and he saw that I'm afraid. So he says, don't be scared, nobody's gonna hurt you, nobody's gonna do anything for you. I see you don't know anybody. I know here a lot of people, and I know here a lot of people that live in Garmisch, already survivors. And we're going to that ball, and I'm gonna meet there a lot that I know, and I introduce him to you. I says, okay, please hold on to me. I'm not going in without you any place. I don't know anybody. And he was very nice. We came to Garmisch-Partenkirchen, he says, and we were all, to go to the ball. He says, wait, my friends are coming, I'm waiting. One couple that is married already and one guy that is single. They're coming already, we're gonna be all at one table. I says, okay. And the rest of the time he was dancing with me and I saw that he's a decent guy, He told me all about his family. I told him about my family. He had tragic because his father died, when he was 12 years old, and he was like the whole provider after that in the house. So, he told me all the story, and I really had Rahmonis. I says, oh my God, you had a terrible life, Yes, he had to work already, quit school at 12 and go to work, and what could he make it? Mother and little brother was still home. So, and we had a good time. We going home also back the same evening. We didn't stay there anyway. The same evening we came home, and I went to, that time I went already not to the barracks that I lived, but I went to my cousin's house and I slept there in my cousin's house. And she wakes me up in the morning. I was tired, I wanted to sleep. Well, she says, somebody is coming up the step to see you. I says, well, who's going to come to see me early in the morning? She says, it's a boy. He's coming up. I see him. I says, I met a boy there, but not that he's going to come and see me. Early in the morning he came already. And from that time on, he didn't let me go. And I stuck with him. And 6 months we were going together, and he said, I want to marry you. I have nobody, you have nobody, we make a life of ourselves. And I liked him and he liked me, so we got married.
Were you in love?
Yeah, very much so. I liked him till his death. I loved him till he died in 2004.
So when you found out he was coming up the stairs, were you
I
excited?
said, this is it. I said, yeah, that's it.
Did you know?
He's
Did you
hooked
know?
up. Yeah.
When did you know you were going to marry him the next day?
Not the next day, because, my cousin was still bringing me boys to meet. My cousin itself was, so after I met this guy, nobody was any good.
Right.
I found all kinds of things in everybody he brought to see me. One talks with the hand.
Because you had already made up your mind.
I was already made up my mind. I said, this is no good. Don't
So
bring
tell me
anyone.
about the wedding.
The wedding my cousins arranged. My husband brought from all the towns nearby what we could buy from the food, he brought. And my cousins baked and cooked. And what could I tell you? It was for so many people.
Was it in Feldafing?
In Feldafing.
So did everybody from the camp show up?
Everybody. That's what I want to tell you. They had so much and so much for everybody, not for too many, what we invited personally.
But then
and we thought this is it. And at the wedding started, they started dancing, and everything. And you know, in Feldafing in Europe, the color has to sit in one place. It's a Hussenstisch and the colorstisch. So uh, they came over, my cousins came over to me, Gewalt, what are we gonna do? So many people are coming, we haven't got so much food for everybody. So I said, cut in half. What can I tell you? I don't know. Cut in half, that's all. And then cut, it was okay. She cut it, whatever they did, you know, I had already my cousin, his wife, and another cousin, women came to help, and a friend of theirs. I had already four cooks and waitresses. And I had
And
music.
when did you get married? 1946?
1945, no, 1946 in February. 1946 in February.
And then you lived in Feldafing.
I lived in Feldafing till coming to America.
Now, you got pregnant right away?
Yeah, because I was, you know.
Right.
So I went to my cousin, and it was 3 months after. I says, I tell you something, I'm pregnant and I'm so ashamed. He says, what are you ashamed? You married. I says, okay, I know I'm ashamed that right away I became pregnant. Why, I didn't know what to do. I mean, you know, what's the matter with you? He says, you married, you could be pregnant, okay? And don't even think about, no, I wasn't thinking about anything, you know, to abort it or something, no, that I wasn't thinking. But I was really like a little cow, you know. I'm ashamed. We just got married and I'm pregnant. Some of them already were half a year married at least. Why did I?
So when you had the baby, was it a boy or a girl?
Yeah, a boy.
So there was a bris.
Sure.
So was it a big celebration?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about the bris.
The bris was in the hospital. The mohel was in the hospital. Then the party was home. In Europe, in that time, in 46, they kept the women 10 days. They didn't let her go home. And 10 days in bed. So when I got off the bed, I couldn't walk. My feet were like stiff. I says, what the heck happened to my feet? Well, I started walking it was okay.
So what was the bris like?
The bris was beautiful, you know, everybody, to the bris came already only my friends and family, whoever I invited.
So the camp
And
doesn't...
the brises already, they didn't cook themselves, it was already catered. There was already a place that you could buy. They opened up all kinds of stores.
In
bakeries.
Feldafing?
In Feldafing, sure.
Wow.
Stores and restaurants and catering places. So the bris was already catered, you know. So nobody cooked for
So
it.
the whole camp didn't show up?
No.
But
no.
again, the feeling when a baby's born.
The feeling is wonderful when the baby's already born, you know. But you felt like you're alone. You're not with your mother, you're not with a close family. It's just cousins and friends that you made.
You have the loss.
That's when I was missing my family. The first time really missing, you know. Not so much at the wedding, you know, but when I gave birth, I felt, now I need my mother. Was not no such thing, you know.
When did you know your brother was alive?
My brother, you wouldn't believe it. My brother I first found in 1963.
Okay, so that's much later. All right, I'm going to let you tell me about that, and then we'll come back to Feldafing. How did it happen that you found your brother?
How did it happen? I didn't know. I have cousins in Israel that left Europe before the war, like in 1930 or earlier, I don't know. And I had cousins here that were survivors, like me, who were in DP camps, in concentration camps. One of my cousins lived in Philadelphia, from the survivors, and that was his brother that lived in Israel, one of his brothers that went early 30s to Israel, to one of the kibbutz, you know. They were going to help build a land, young boys. And I don't know how and where, but somebody from Israel, from the press, from Israel, a reporter, came to Russia to interview people. Those years were very strict to go to Russia. You just couldn't come in just like that, you know. He got the permission because he was a correspondent, and he interviewed all kinds of people. And he happened to be in the town where my brother lived. He was already married with a daughter, you know, with a grown daughter. And I think the daughter was 18 years old when I met her. You know, he was through the war in Russia from 1939 to when I met him in 1963. Now he left me home with a small kid, you know, a small child. Somehow he remembered that he has cousins in Israel. He wrote to Europe, but somehow they didn't get it, that they didn't write to him that I'm alive, that one sister's alive. He didn't know about anything. So he gave his name to the correspondent, and he gave my cousin's name in Israel also. You know, he says, my father his name was so-and-so, my mother was so-and-so, and the cousin's name is so, his name is Chaim Gastfreund, the same name as mine. And he even said to the correspondent his father's name and the mother's name also, he remembered. And he forgot about it. All of a sudden, in Israel, my cousin had a store already. He wasn't already in the kibbutz. He had a private store, a men's apparel. And a neighbor of his also, I was reading the paper, and she ran into my cousin's store. He says, Chaim, they looking here for you in the paper. The correspondent gave his name into the paper that he was looking for, that cousin. And that neighbor happened to read the paper, and she ran into him and says, Chaim, somebody's looking for you. And he says, he looked at the name, he says, oh my God, this is my cousin from Sosnovitz. And he wrote him right away a letter that he has a sister alive, and she survived the war, and I live in America. And then he called his brother in Philadelphia and said, get in touch with Celia. My name was Jewish, Celia. Get in touch with Celia. Tell her that her brother's alive and lives here in Russia. So when he called me, I almost fell to the floor because it was 1963 already. So many years later, I was liberated in 45, you know. I didn't believe it, but I wrote a letter, and I got a letter back, and he says, send me pictures. And it was my brother, really, you know. And I got right away working. I says, can I go? They said, they don't think so, but try, you know. I tried, I wrote to the embassy, to our embassy, to the American embassy in Washington, not in New York. And they said, maybe you'll be able to. The story that you're telling, and you want to see him, you maybe get a visa to go. And took a few months. I got a letter that I have permission to go. I should get a passport and make arrangements to go and meet my brother. And I went to Russia. My first stop in Russia was Kiev. And my brother and his daughter came to wait for me in Kiev at the airport. He did not recognize me, but I recognized him. But when he left, he was in his 20s. And I was a kid when he left. So he didn't recognize me. And I see him passing, and I said, this is my brother. And he's just letting me pass by. I says, I gotta go back and tell him who I am. I says, you're my brother. Oh. And he still didn't know who I am. He still didn't. He looked and he looked. And we went, I had to be in the hotel, staying in the hotel in Kiev overnight, then go to his town. And we were all in the hotel sitting and talking, and I'm telling him, he was asking me all the questions what I went through with the parents and everything, because he left very early, right, maybe 2 days after the Germans came into our town. So he says he's not staying with hiding places and waiting they should call me to go to work in the streets. He says, I'm leaving where, if I wind up in that time was Palestine, I'm okay. Wherever I will wind up, so he wind up in Russia, But we didn't know where he was really,
Was it a shock for you?
That we was a shock when we was sitting in the hotel and talking maybe for hours. After that he tells me, now I know you're my sister. Until now, he says, I didn't think you were my sister. I says, why? I told you, I recognized you. He says, yes, but now what you're telling me about he says, our mother and our father and our sisters and our brothers, and what you're telling me, now I first see in you my mother, because I looked like my mother.
You were able to keep in touch with him?
Oh yeah, sure. He left later. He didn't want to come to America. I wanted to sponsor him to come to this country, but he didn't want it. He says once he goes out, he'll be able to go out of Russia, he wants to go to Israel. So in '73, he left and went to Israel. Then my husband and I went to see him in Israel, and he was happy and he was fine, and he found the whole family there, cousins and my uncle and aunt in England came to see him. They were still alive, and Israel was like him. He says, my sister, listen to the birds, what sing here. Nowhere in the world you hear like that. It was really, And he was very happy in Israel, but he just didn't survive too long. He had a heart attack 7 years later and died.
But he got to live in Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go back to Feldafing. What kind of work did your husband do in Feldafing?
My husband worked for the committee in Feldafing, where they give out all the food. He worked there before I met him.
Okay, so that's
Right
what he
away,
did.
Yeah, he worked there all till we left.
Now, who
It
in
was a magazine.
who were your in the 3 years after you were married? Who were
Yeah.
your closest friends in Feldafing
My closest friend,
or
I have
friends?
I have a few friends very close in Feldafing. First of all, I had Faye Eisenhouse. She lived here, but unfortunately she died 2 years ago, just on Mother's Day. She was to my wedding. My husband knew her when before we got married.
Okay.
So he introduced me to her, and she was my best friend. She was married, and she found her husband. After was liberated, she found her husband, and she lived in Feldafing, and he introduced me to her, and then my cousin introduced me to her family, so they were very close with us, and we had company. We had a good life in Feldafing.
So, if you had a little group of friends, who else was part of this group?
Her sister, Faye's sister.
Do you remember her name?
Yeah, sure, Bronya.
Bronya who?
Yeah, Bronya. Now she's slum. She lives in Jacksonville, Florida.
And who else was part of the group?
Then it was my Faye's cousin with his wife. Also, and then I met.
Do you remember their names?
Yeah, sure. We were in touch with them till recently that they passed away.
So what were their names?
Their name was Abe Rizak and Celia Rizak, his wife. And I had a very close friend. We lived in the same building, Helen Rothschild and Ruby Rothschild.
So you stayed friendly with the people from Feldafing
for a long time.
For your entire
Even here.
even
I
here.
was a friend with Faye, very close, like sisters, and with Helen Rothschild, very close. And I'm still am. She lost her husband, but she's okay. So I'm still with them friends.
Now, even though you had a baby, did you still have a social life?
Yeah, we came to each other's houses. We put the babies in the carriages.
Okay.
The babies slept.
And
we
what did you do?
played cards, and we were singing, and we were dancing, and we all lived only in one room.
Right.
Everyone just had one room.
So who watched the babies?
We watched where we were.
Oh, so all the babies.
The babies. We brought all the babies.
And you played cards. So did you ever have one person watch all the babies and every?
No.
So that
we
you
were always with the
with
children.
the children.
If we went to a football game, we were with the children to the games.
Oh, so you went to
sure.
Oh, so
We
they
were
had
going-
football games also.
Of course. Yeah. It was a team. There were two teams, two or more. They were
Were these
playing.
survivors teams?
Yeah, survivors.
So Feldafing would play against who?
And they played other survivors from other camps.
Oh, that's funny.
Sure.
Now, what were the holidays like?
The
What-
holidays.
What was it like to go to Rosh Hashanah?
Rosh Hashanah was, we had the theater, was the synagogue, converted into. This was a theater and was movies showing there. It was like a social thing, and dances were going on there. And Rosh Hashanah, it happened the first Rosh Hashanah that I was there. Eisenhower, with a few generals, others, came to Feldafing.
Okay.
And they came into the synagogue. and then they wanted to go and visit how we live.
You mean the first Rosh Hashanah Eisenhower was there?
Yeah.
What did it feel like to have?
These were our gods, our liberators. They liberated us, you know. And he came to Veldaving to see how we live.
So, what did it feel like to celebrate your high holiday?
Oh, it was wonderful, you know. It was wonderful. We had already a rabbi, we had already a choir was singing, and we had already a cantor. They were talented people that were before the war. They had already those jobs. You know, the rabbi and the moil and the cantor, you know, they were from cantorians
But
at
you
home.
were all teenagers before. Some
Mhm.
boys were even pre-bar mitzvah before the war.
Before the war,
So-
yeah, like my brother was bar mitzvah in the war.
So, here you were, a group of kids basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody knew how to daven?
No,
But it
not
didn't-
everybody. But boys knew. The boys all knew because boys in Europe had to go when they're 3 years old into Cheder already.
All right.
When before they started regular schools.
So the boys knew how to
The
daven.
boys knew how to daven. And I knew how to daven because I had a little brother. He didn't want to sit in Cheder alone. So I had to go with him.
So, it,
He was 2 years younger than me,
So-
but I was okay to go. When he was 3, I was 5, and I had to sit with him in
right.
Cheder.
So everybody really knew how to daven.
Most of them knew how to do. Boys all knew. Oh,
Yes.
boys all knew. But the girls also, most of them. If they came out from a religious home, they went religion to Bais Yankov.
And Yom Kippur, was there any special feeling on Yom Kippur?
We all fasted. All fasted. There's no such thing. No activities. We went to synagogue. We went home. We slept. We took care of the children. And we went out walking a little bit in the street if it was a nice day and it didn't rain or wasn't cold. And
Did Feldafing
It
feel
was
like
a-
a community?
Yeah, it was already like a town. You're living in the town, but different circumstances. We had to share everybody on the floor that had an apartment, a room. We had to share the bathrooms, you know. And showers were for everybody, you know. A special shower that we used to go. Showers were not in the barracks. We had to go to a special thing for showers.
Do you remember your first Passover?
My first Passover.
Or matzah? Did you have matzah?
Yeah, sure.
And do you remember,
We were provided for that.
you were provided for
American,
that?
That time in Veldafing was already the Hayas. Was
Okay.
already the Jewish organization Hayas was already providing all for the holidays what we needed.
Now, were there any events, yearly events, that celebrated, and I don't mean celebrated, but acknowledged the Holocaust? The deaths, of survivors?
No,
That
that time no. no.
Not,
No, we tried, I think I tried to put it behind me and not think about it. It's a new life and a new chapter of life.
okay. Do you remember where you were when Israel became a state?
I was in Brooklyn.
No, 1948. You
Oh,
were-
48, I was still in Veldafing. Yes. Right.
think.
Yeah.
Do you remember you were in the camp?
Oh, we were all dancing in the streets and we were all so happy and we were planning to go to Israel. you
But
know.
Now I'm asking you, do you have any specific recollection of when they announced that Israel was a state?
Well,
And